So here we are, back to TNO. Requiem, of course. Right before the last Hoi 4 DLC released, they did drop an update rebalancing the combat and giving South Africa some new content. It's only 5 years, but honestly, it's fine since in its short time span, it delivers a complete and fun Hoi 4 campaign for a country in a very interesting position. I know that sounds a little cope, but when the bar for updates is 3 years of Chilean Antarctica content, this is basically a Thanksgiving dinner. Anyways, let me show you what this country is all about. Now, at this point, I'd give you a summary of South Africa's lore so you know what's going on with the country, but fortunately, the mod actually does a decent enough job by itself, so I could sit back on this one.
The empires of the past have fallen, replaced by new powers across Europe and Africa, with Germania and Rome now dominating these lands. However, far from this transformation lies an older colony. Despite a changing world and the emergence of powerful blocs, this nation remains withdrawn, content to engage in trade while maintaining a distance from global developments. Yet, internal forces threaten to tear the nation of the Springbok apart, as the oppressed begin to organize. Meanwhile, extremists in exile plot against the government just across the border. The ruling party grows increasingly divided, and before long, the peace that has lasted for the past 17 years will come to an end. The fate of Africa and its people now seems destined to be decided on the battlefield. Welcome to South Africa.
Okay. Alright, that's pretty good presentation, man. Modders can do all of this, and yet we still have to ask Paradox to stop putting 70-day focuses in their focus trees. So, with it being TNO, we be having lots of decisions. The first group is the difficulty options for the eventual South African War, and since I'm a big boy, we're gonna go ahead and take on Hutig's Vengeance. Next up, we got decisions related to South Africa's diamond mining industry. We extract some every month and can cash them in for a lot of goodies. While we are technically neutral, the Germans know we've been eyeing up the Americans, so every time we do something with them, they're gonna get steamed. So occasionally, we have to do stuff with the Germans to keep their jealousy in check. There is also a meter that tracks what political direction South Africa is leaning from conservative to centrist to progressive. Now, onto our initial focus tree. This will set the stage for what the politics are like in South Africa. Short version,
I just can't do it. I can't take this shit no more, man.
Thinking about all the writing that goes into building the world of TNO, I know it ain't easy. Hell, building any alt history setting that makes sense is pretty hard. That's why today's video is sponsored by World Anvil. This is something that I'm really looking forward to using next year because World Anvil is great software for anyone interested in any sort of world building, writing, or managing a D&D campaign. It has support for over 100 RPG systems like D&D 5e, with so many tools for you to use while you create your own world like interactive maps, character sheets, journals, timelines, and more. Or if you're not interested in D&D stuff, if you have any passion in writing something like me, there are many tools to help you get your ideas out of your head and onto a page. Hell, they even have tools to publish a novel if you want to go that far. So, if you want to become the next Stephen King, plan out your new hit alt history Hoi 4 mod, or just want a convenient site to manage your D&D campaign, check out worldanvil.com through my link in the description or pinned comment. If you really like what you see there, you can use my code GUY to get 51% off any yearly membership. I know there's a lot of creative people watching this video, so go out and put it to use. Now, let's check back in with South Africa. A big issue in South African politics is the state of the monarchy. The throne is empty since there are two options: Queen Elizabeth II in Canada or Edward VIII in Britain, and recognizing one means choosing a side, jeopardizing their declared neutrality status. With the throne sitting vacant for so long, people, mainly the Afrikaners, are questioning the point of even having a monarchy and pushing for a referendum to abolish it. Eventually, the monarchists in the United Party, led by de Villiers Graaff, have had enough of the nagging by the Boers, so they allow one, thinking they can win it and shut them up for good. Now, this is where the fun begins. We got 600 days until the referendum is decided, and until then, we have a lot of stuff to keep track of. While we try to keep up support of the monarchy, we also have to suppress the support for the African National Congress and the, very mad Afrikaners. We need to stop their support from getting to 100, or else the ANC will start some debilitating strikes, or the OBW stealing weapons from our armory. At this point, we unlock the next part of the focus tree, and this portion is focused on building up the economy of the country mainly, with a little stuff on the radical factions, ending with a focus on our military. I go for the industry focuses first since I need to be prioritizing military production. You don't really need to make many guns since you can buy a lot with your diamonds. I mainly build the other equipment my infantry divisions need. I also make sure I'm expanding my diamond income as much as possible early on. There's a lot to manage at this time, and that time does go by quickly. If I want to stand a chance against the Germans later on, I had to be on top of this. So, over the next year, I'm out there, making phone calls to radical politicians, giving them reasons to calm down, easing tensions between agitated citizens and the government, raiding extremist cells for anti-government groups, and giving out aid to needy citizens in the name of the monarch who cannot be named. This referendum was started with the intention of bringing this country together, but ironically, as time went on, it was making the country more divided. The OBW, led by Albert Herzog, was tired of the United Party's rule of South Africa and would not be satisfied with just getting rid of the monarchy. He wanted all Anglo influence in South African politics gone. So he made contact with leaders from the neighboring German colonies to formulate a plan to make that happen. The death of Hitler wasn't any issue for the OBW and their German allies because everything was already in motion. Even though the referendum results showed that the majority of people wanted the monarchy around, that wouldn't stop the fascist boots marching south. On November 11th, the three German African colonies announced an alliance, and later that night, German and Afrikaner troops made an attempt in Pretoria to coup the government by arresting the main United Party politicians. However, their attack was disorganized, and the few loyal troops and police officers were able to buy enough time to evacuate key United Party politicians and South African elites to Cape Town. Although the OBW technically won their first battle against the government and got control of the entire state of Transvaal, they failed their strategic goal to decapitate the South African leadership with this attack, and now Prime Minister Graaff was organizing the opposition to fight for the country. The South African War had officially begun. Fortunately, I had prepared the army well for a situation like this. We have formed a large force with a few templates we're going to be working with. The reserves are very simple, just 8 infantry brigades with a shovel. They'll fill gaps and stand guard at low intensity sections. We also have some simple motorized divisions in case we need to exploit any breakthrough or rapidly move to support a battle. Some of them even have tanks, but can't say they're really top of the line. The main power in our army is gonna be from the infantry divisions. I only put 4 elite infantry brigades in them because they're considered special forces and because of equipment limitations, but that's enough to get a lot of good combat modifiers. This division may not look like much on paper, but it will be super cracked later on. You have a few days before the German colonies officially join the war, so while the Afrikaners are all alone, we send in the motorized corps. Bernard Montgomery, seeing the disastrous situation South Africa is in, takes himself out of retirement to lead the country's defense, and I will say his skill is definitely appreciated. As you'd expect, we have a new focus tree for the war to power us through it. The Afrikaners, with their horrible militia, couldn't handle my initial motorized rush, and we drove through all their cities. Couldn't end the war that easily though. The Africa's Child joined the fight, but they can't stop me from VP rushing them. The Afrikaners are now capitulated. All too easy. But now it's time for the real fight. In the west, they're hitting us hard from Namibia, and I'm rushing in troops because with that being a mountainous port, that is too good of ground to lose. In the east, I originally planned on giving up Pretoria and Johannesburg, but then I changed my mind since they are very valuable cities that I should not be giving up for free. I had to constantly keep an eye on and shuffle divisions to the west to hold the river line. I didn't expect the Germans to be trying so hard in this area, and my reservists can't handle sustained combat like this. Meanwhile in the east, I have to say I was hoping we could hold Pretoria for longer, but with the amount of divisions they're sending in, that's not possible. In these first few months, the Germans have such an advantage against you, it's very hard to make any sort of counterattacks. I was hoping that the Germans would overextend themselves here and I could pocket some of their troops, but they had too many soldiers in the area to let me get away with that. Our main line had definitely been breached, but the fight's not over yet. We're making the Germans pay a heavy price for every mile they advance now, and we have more troops on the way. The Americans are very generous with the military aid they're sending me, so we can constantly train more divisions, but it's not just them helping out. The remaining members of the Commonwealth are also reinforcing us with their soldiers. I feel that time is definitely on our side. Although the fascists have pushed us in a lot, we have inflicted heavy casualties and we're only getting stronger from here. These past few months of combat have allowed us to pick up a few doctrines that have greatly boosted our defensive potential. And with so many guns, we can beef up our reserve divisions so they're even more annoying to push. The Africa's Child troops looked exhausted, so I gathered my motorized divisions to start a counterattack into Transvaal. The German infantry in the area were so battered they folded quickly, and we were rolling through the streets of Johannesburg a lot faster than I expected. This gave us a nice treat of a pocket with 4 divisions in it. With that being so simple, I figured why not just keep going in the area? Pretoria would be great to have back. I actually wasn't the only one making moves here though. The American volunteers were doing a push of their own to the west and just needed a little help from me. Once they got the support they needed, we were able to move in and cut off another 4 divisions. Looking at the casualties now, I don't think the Africa's Child is gonna be able to do any attacks anytime soon. We're now at the part of the focus tree that gives us stuff to put the initiative firmly in our corner, and I'm gonna be taking advantage of that. From Transvaal and the west, we launched a 2-pincer attack, soon breaking across the river. I was trying to cut off as many Germans along the way as possible, and it was going well. The fascists tried to slow my advance with constant counterattacks, but they were too weak to do anything. Eventually, my troops met up in the town of Sishen. With that, we had inflicted an unrecoverable wound to the Africa's Child. Over 30 divisions, basically a whole army group, were cut off in that pocket and they were not getting out. I estimate that the Germans easily lost over 350,000 men after the Sicyon offensive. Now there was no hope for the Africa's Child. Across the entire front, my divisions with the OFN volunteers went on the offensive. The Germans were falling back across the front line, but my motorized divisions could easily outpace them and cut off retreating troops. Every week, more and more divisions were being wiped off the map. Soon, another entire army was cut off in Namibia, and I figured now I was safe to do a frontline order and tell my troops to push aggressively. No longer would the fight be on South African soil. Now we would take the fight to the Germans, liberating their colonies from Nazi oppression. With the liberation of Namibia, Africa's Child casualties surpassed 2 million. While the Germans were losing this war, their L's kept stacking up. The Malagasy people managed to break free of their chains in Madagascar. The Germans had done so badly in this war, they were gonna get completely pushed out of Africa. Again! You can really tell the Reich's reputation is in the toilet when even the Iberian Union is sending volunteers to help me push. It doesn't mean much on the battlefield, but it's a clear message to Berlin that Iberia thinks they're washed up. One by one, the Reich's commissariats fell, and the end of this war is just through the Congo. There are options to do a ceasefire here, but I don't see a reason to when there's no enemy army in front of me anymore. Here's the final casualty count of the war, guys. A very embarrassing result for the Nazis. On March 11th, 1965, almost 16 months after Herzog tried his Afrikaner coup, the Reich is pretty much expelled from Africa. The Reich's commissariats are divided up with some land going to South Africa, but most of it being managed under OFN occupation zones. The mod has a cool custom achievement for winning the South African War on the hardest difficulty, but the content doesn't end here though. We have one last focus tree to see the fate of South Africa after this victory. I'll just go over the main events for y'all. Now that the war is over, the wartime unity in South African politics quickly dissolved, with conservatives and progressives leaving the Unity Party to form their own parties. There were still scattered remnants of the Nazis who plotted to fight a guerrilla campaign against South Africa, but they had minimal impact against the superior forces of the OFN. The Alliance could proudly declare victory in this war and made sure to show off to the world. I'm confident this played a huge role in the news that Italy was holding elections for the first time in decades. By protecting the flame of democracy in Cape Town, we kindled a fire that gave the Italians the light they needed to see the end of fascism. India was also able to beat the Japanese-supported fascist government in Bengal, so across the world, liberty is winning out against these oppressive governments. In 1966, South Africa can finally do something that it's been unable to do for over 2 decades: crown a monarch. Although the Reich still reigns over London, with Queen Elizabeth's coronation in Cape Town, we can send a powerful message to the world, and especially the Reich, that the Commonwealth can and will endure. After that, elections are called, with the main 3 contenders being the United Party, of course, the New Conservative Party, and the Progressive Party. This election is decided by South Africa's political outlook. Although there are choices across all the focus trees, I was neutral for most of the game. It's mainly decided by your picks in the final focus tree. It felt thematically appropriate after the war to just go progressive, because after doing all that talk about being the beacon of liberty in Africa, I feel like we needed to walk the walk and do something about apartheid soon. The elections are finished pretty quick, and on March 13th, the Progressive Party triumphs. After 30 years of dominance, the United Party had finally lost an election. De Villiers Graaff, who had been Prime Minister for the past 10 of those years, accepted the results, deciding that his job was done in politics and it was time for retirement. he leaves Harry Schwartz, the new Prime Minister from the Progressive Party, a final letter of advice to be mindful of how he wants to reform South Africa so things don't blow up in his face, and with that, the campaign is over. Like I said, it's a very short campaign, but honestly, I liked it a lot. I will admit this was my second try doing this run because my first time I didn't know what to expect with the political violence and I didn't make enough divisions for the war, so I face planted. However, now I know if you can tank the initial Africa's Child attack for the first 3 months, you've pretty much won. They can barely replace their equipment losses, which was a bit disappointing because I wish they had some teeth on the defense. So if I were to suggest anything to the devs, it'd be, especially when you play on the Hutig difficulty, give the Reichskommissariat's decisions or a repeated mission to get more heavy German equipment like tanks, trucks, planes, and artillery. Emphasis on the artillery so they can make better templates. Anyways, that's all from me today. Like the video if you enjoyed so other people will see it too. Thanks again to World Anvil for sponsoring this video. For the writers and D&D players watching, they got a lot for you there if you click my link down below. Shout out to my wonderful alumni generously supporting me on Patreon. You guys mean a lot to me, and I hope to do more for y'all in 2026. There will be more good content to come, so I hope to see y'all again. Bye bye!